Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Punch Up Pod with Lila and Pat. Happy Wednesday. How's everyone doing today? Pat, how are you, my friend? Oh, boy, starting off with a bang. You're muted. What is happening?
What?
What?
Just when I thought we nailed it.
Nailed it once again.
Well, I'll have to share my exciting story again about how I worked a lot like every other American. That's all I got.
Tell us. No, I want to hear. How are you doing? What's happening in your world?
Yeah. I worked like a couple of 11-hour days in a row, and I'm ready for some cocktails.
Hell
because
yeah.
the politics part won't cheer us up, but the cocktail part.
The cocktail part is what I rely on fully every night at 5.
What's going on in your world?
A lot of baseball, some good, some bad. I'll tell you, baseball is a really good mental training ground for me because the highs are high and the lows are low. And I need to find my equanimity, my zen. I need to, but it's hard. It's hard to live my my pride through my kids. No, I'm kidding. I would never do that to them. But it's like a hard thing to watch, the ups and the downs. It's hard.
Right. But at least, you know, they're like everything you're interested in is always going to have drama. Like it's just what kind of drama do you like? And, you know,
that's
it's
exactly
to have your kids to follow with the sports.
Yeah. Yeah. No, that's really fun. I'm finally home. I feel like I've been traveling so much. It was fun to do a show with you from a hotel room last week, but it was a little chaotic. So I'm happy to be back at home with my dog. And
that sounds like we had an OnlyFans thing going on. We did not do a show from a hotel room. Lila did a show from a hotel room.
I did my, but which also was not OnlyFans. It was our normal version.
I'm putting the comments out of order to make it seem interesting, like
exactly
commenting on the OnlyFans.
It's our editorial privilege to be able to funnel them in however we feel like. We do today have another show to get to right after our show. We'll be on Jen Perlman's show with her co-host Peter, Generational Change at 6. So we're going to have another hard out show. And then hope you'll join us over there for the next hour, if possible. But so maybe we should, what do you think? Should we just kind of get to it today? Or what's your feeling?
Always.
Okay.
Oh, I almost played our intro again. See, I'm not on my game here at all.
It's rough. It's rough when we take a break. But now we're going to do the hash it out as a reminder.
Let's hash it out.
Hey, and by the way, we have our cocktail of the week is the Rootbeer Ruckus, which is bourbon, root beer with a splash of lime.
It's actually a really easy, tasty drink. Of all the ones we've made, this is like, I could see just coming home from work and having one of these without much thought.
I like that. That's what you want, simplicity. That's why I like my wine with a screw top. Just get right to business.
Get to it.
All right, what do we have? USA, how you doing? COVID unmasked, Dem updates, timeline cleanse, and Bohemian Rhapsody. Let's spin that wheel.
And 5 shots.
And 5 shots.
Yeah, baby.
Got it ready.
Oh, there we go. That's how you always know it's going to be a good show. We start with a shot. Right down to business.
And the beauty of today's show is the after show we never do will be on Jen's time.
That's right. Jen and Peter are going to have to deal with us very sloshed. Cheers.
Cheers.
Whew, okay. You removed it.
Yeah, baby.
All right. You tried. take it away from me. The real gods were beaming down on me and knowing.
Yeah. Well, I'm not new at this. Every time we leave it on, we hit it like 5 times in a row.
I know. All right, ready? Cheers.
Hey, if I have a rant on Jen's show, don't stop me, because I want to be canceled. I want to finally be canceled. Let me just go off.
I don't want you to be canceled, but I do want to rant.
Yeah. Okay. Fair.
Yeah, baby.
Wow. Did you coordinate that yourself?
I mean, I pushed the scream button, but I didn't know exactly what it was doing. It's a bit much.
That's a good one. That was wholly appropriate. Well, I'm not sure exactly where to start with how we're doing, but I think one thing that's interesting that happened this week was the revelation of all of those documents that were leaked, were stolen, whatever they were, to show. Yeah, showed several different things. First of all, it showed that nobody has confidence that Ukraine can beat Russia. They also don't have confidence that Russia can beat Ukraine. But basically, U.S. military is fully aware that we are in another Vietnam, Afghanistan, take your pick, of just a proxy war where we are destroying one country to try to destroy another. So to me, that was the biggest revelation that we should all know.
With no end in sight is the thing. It's not like this was a quick little skirmish that somehow got out of hand. They've always known this is going to be a prolonged, ugly, expensive war. And, so they're sending us, they're hitting us with all this propaganda already. You got leaked documents that show all this stuff. And
well, this is crazy, right? Because this says, "Oh, I just dropped something. I hope it wasn't my glasses."
This wasn't what I was looking for. I was looking for that. There's a graphic somewhere about how the biggest threat, the biggest revelation of those documents is that somebody leaked them. It's not the actual contents.
Right. Yeah. And I know it looks like there is a chance that our wonderful StreamYard really screwed this up. But yes, the biggest takeaway from legacy media, from corporate media, is, hey, don't pay attention to these leaked documents. We need to find who's at the bottom of leaking them, and that's an enormous crime. And you know how the U.S. does not like their war crimes to be exposed. The other thing, though, in addition to seeing that the U.S. knows that they can't win this, is that it's pretty clear that Zelensky is sort of playing both ends for the middle, right? Like, he wants to have these long-range missiles strike inside of Russia, which at this point would, I don't know what, when we get to term this a world war, but like, it's close. And as much as people make fun of Russia's debilitated military, fine. But the truth is, they're not just fighting Ukraine. They're fighting basically all of NATO at this point, and our, CIA and our training. So many war crimes on both sides. And again, there is just no call for peace from the US. And so now what we are hearing is Ukraine wants India to play a bigger role in helping end Russia's war. So, when the US can't be counted on, and we know that that the US has several times quashed any peace agreements or calls for diplomacy, they're looking elsewhere, because they have been trying from the beginning, even though Zelensky is also trying to defend and antagonize and all that kind of stuff. But also he has called for some negotiations since a year and a half ago, when Biden was rattling the saber.
And they wouldn't be in this war if we hadn't encouraged them to pursue NATO relations, try to become part of NATO. And
yeah.
So, we obviously have, it's been in the US's interest. I don't even know why it would be in our interest, but the narrative is that it's in our interest to have Ukraine join NATO. But is it really our interest if we're going to funnel them billions of dollars and not pay for protections at home, like healthcare, basic stuff. Our entire economy is collapsing. We're having, we have a homeless problem that's off the charts. It's unaffordable to live anywhere.
Yeah.
You need roommate. Anyone growing up now needs roommates for the next 30 years of their life.
Yeah, I mean, anybody who's below 50 years old is probably never going to own a home unless you have, generational wealth in your family. But, I think the other thing is, yes, we are funneling money there, and some of it is specifically just to Ukraine. But so much of the stuff that isn't just for our own military industrial complex that goes over to Ukraine is actually, it's like a money laundering, right? Like, because it goes there, but then we have BlackRock who's there to take that money to try to rebuild Ukraine, which, anything that we do is we're privatizing everything over there. That's why Zelensky got rid of pretty much any labor protections. And he's going to sell off his country for parts. And so all of that money sort of ends up coming right back to the worst people in the US anyway.
Yeah. It's just like the Clinton Global Initiative. It's the same thing.
Yeah.
So these influential donors get a piece of the rebuilding, or whatever you want to call it.
Right.
Any program that goes over to Ukraine is going to be handed out. It's not going to be, those positions aren't decided by groups that are the government, that citizens oversee. There's nothing. It's just a handout from the government to Bill Clinton's cousin.
Yeah, right.
Stuff like that.
Yeah. Yeah.
And
Just
so even if you care about Ukraine, I guarantee the rebuilding effort, if they get pummeled over there and we're rebuilding, the war is over, hypothetically, because that program exists, just like the Clinton Global Initiative, CGI, existed. The public thinks, well, if we donate to that CGI or that group that's going to rebuild that country, that's the best group to do it. So they don't give to other groups that could be doing some of this rebuilding. It's just a big funneling money project to the rich donors.
It really is. And
so I just want to say, before all this stuff happened with Ukraine, Zelensky was it was known as one of the most corrupt governments in the world.
Yep.
And Zelensky himself was named in the Pandora Papers.
Yeah.
As being incredibly, his own country couldn't stand him. He was on the verge of getting ousted.
Right. Because, one of the things is part of the reason that we helped stage that coup in 2014 is because the president at that time preferred the loan stipulations from Russia to those that were being offered through the European Union and US. Because what we always do when we come in to save a country is these horrific predatory loans that keep them under our belt for decades. And so that's what's happening again, is we're destroying their country and then we're going to rebuild it with our own no bid contractors who are over there to just take billions of dollars from us. So
Seymour Hersh, who reported on the Nord Stream pipeline being destroyed by the US, which is not even a story here. Now the new narrative here is, even like the best thing you can do is to not investigate this story.
Yeah, because
how is that a US position publicly pushed to not investigate who caused it?
One of the biggest acts of ecological terrorism, which we tried to pin on Russia initially. And now the reports that Russia's actually trying to figure out a way to repair their own pipeline for hundreds of millions of dollars. So why would they have done that to themselves? But at the same time, which I think is really fascinating, is that what's also unknown is that Zelensky has been buying the fuel from Russia. The Ukrainian president and many in his entourage have been skimming untold millions from the American dollars earmarked for diesel fuel payments. So he's actually trading or buying from the people who are supposed to be pariahs of the whole world. Oh, it's a little bit of a double. One estimate by an analyst from the CIA put the embezzled funds at 400 million last year, at least. Another expert compared the level of corruption in Kyiv as approaching that of the Afghan war, although there will be no professional audit reports emerging from the Ukraine.
What a shock.
What a shock. Also interesting is Macron comes back from his meeting with Xi Jinping and says he's convinced that China has a major role to play in building peace. We are looking at a new multipolar world where Macron says Europe must reduce its dependency on the US and avoid getting dragged into a confrontation between China and the US over Taiwan. So whatever the US was hoping to gain by diminishing Russia is backfiring spectacularly, especially when you see that BRICS, which is, if you can see right here, it's I can't see it closely enough, but it's the red line that's going up, that they surpassed the G7 in GDP share in purchasing power this year. So well,
it's clear we're losing we lost our moral authority in the world a long time ago. I mean, we arguably never really had it, but I mean,
right.
People
were believing the propaganda for a while, really, at least. Yeah.
Really set us back a lot. And so to lose the moral high ground, and now we're losing the economic high ground. And you look at all the barometers that you judge a healthy society on, and we're like way down. Our healthcare is terrible. Our life expectancy is one of the lowest of any developed nation.
Country. Yep.
So China's really taken over, and it really is an economic war with China. You got
while the U.S. is seeking to isolate China economically, two powerful engines of the German economy, Volkswagen and the chemical company BASF, are broadening their huge Chinese investments.
Yeah. Meanwhile, Tesla, that we subsidize like crazy for every little wind project that idiot billionaire has, is funded by the U.S. government.
And but he's going to build a factory in Shanghai. Yep.
Shanghai.
Yeah. But in order to remain competitive, what's happening over here in the US is lawmakers in 11 states have now passed or introduced bills to roll back child labor laws. They're trying to justify these backwards proposals by saying nobody wants to work, but the truth is that corporations are leading this push to exploit children. Yeah, sorry, go ahead.
No, go ahead. I was just going to show that slide. So.
Were you really? If we were in the same space, it'd be so much better.
If we were in the same hotel room when we did this.
A little work never hurt anyone, including teenagers.
Yeah, so you got the Wall Street Journal pushing this like, hey, it's good that kids, kids got to have some work ethic.
But then just not to be outdone, we're not only going to get them working younger, we're going to keep them working longer. Retail and fast food jobs with rising pay lure older workers into roles once filled by teens. More older workers are seeking fast food and retail jobs deemed the province of teens and young adults. The trend is helping ease labor shortages. Pay your fucking people more. Nobody should have to work like that. Now, here's something that I think is... Oh, yeah, go ahead. Nope.
Before we move on, look at that guy on the right there.
He's got
How old
arms
do you think he is? I mean, that is a lot of work right there, holding that plate up. And the odds that he doesn't get fired shortly after this...
Yeah.
Really low. I mean, come on. That's just...
Fired? Or, because here's what Walmart's doing. Here's what Walmart does. Ready for this?
Have you ever noticed that Walmart hires a lot of old people? You might be thinking, well, that's nice. They give them something to do and they can sit there and greet people and they don't have to be alone, sitting at home by themselves. But actually, Walmart does this because they take out life insurance policies on these people. And then when they die, shortly after they're hired, Walmart collects a huge settlement from the insurance company and then goes to find some new old people to exploit in the final days of their lives.
And then just because I feel like, there are a lot of older people in older generations who really don't seem to understand. They're like, well, young people, they all have a cell phone. They spend their money. You go out to eat, those sorts of like, you're never going to be able to save enough to buy a house. But don't you dare buy a phone, which is also necessary if you want to have any job in this whole country anyway.
Yeah.
I think this is a really, good.
Well, the opportunity just isn't there for young people like it was for older people. The
At
number
all.
one way to get yourself out of struggling, poor, poverty, middle class, into the healthy level of the middle class is home ownership, because all your money doesn't go towards rent. You have some equity, you have something built up you can fall back on.
Yep.
And that's unattainable. It just is.
It is unattainable. You cannot save your way out of this when the minimum wage has not increased in a decade, and you can't buy anything with it anyway. This is a really good visual compilation of how prices have changed just in the past 15 years. Take a look at this. Sorry, I realized everything was so small, but that was healthcare, was that very far one up on the left. Medical expenses, housing, tuition, all of those skyrocketed almost 100%. And on the right, the things that decreased were phones and TVs. So what they do is they keep you feeling like, well, I can get a couple nice little things, but I'll never be able to afford to take care of my body or put a roof over my head.
Yeah, you will always have the entertainment level of television, which will distract you from everything else. That's all you'll be able to afford.
Yeah.
And if you saw in there, the CPI was in the middle, which is the cost price index, which is basically inflation, more or less. It's another way of factoring inflation. 42% since 2008. I mean, since 2008, how many people got a 42% raise?
Yeah. I mean, minimum wage has not gone up since 2008. So we know for sure, right? Like
Yeah.
At least,
But rent has gone up more than the CPI. So, I mean, on all levels, it's harder to live for everyone, but you can get that TV. You need that ridiculously expensive cell phone. And even though you can buy the TV, your cable plan is going to be $150 a month, which is, all the things that could keep you happy are expensive. I mean, other than the TV part, but
yeah. So, and when you see what's happening in other countries and you see high-speed rail in Asia and subway stations and infrastructure that's well kept and healthcare that is free at the point of service, or at least on some level is affordable and accessible, it's hard to understand or to make a case for what the U.S. is protecting anymore, apart from its wealthiest, top 1%. So that's the state of the USA right now.
I mean, we've got more on that.
Let's see it.
There's a lot of bad stuff going on.
Well, kids shouldn't have free lunches, but you know who should? North Dakota senators. You need those 3 martini lunch reimbursements.
Yeah, and how we doing in high-speed rail? Oh, another train wreck, toxic stuff dumped all
every day. I think we need to just stop for a bit. Can we just put an end to this? And what was the thing that Trump said, until we figure out what the hell is going on? But I mean, really, like how much more are we going to poison our people before we put a stop? Like, I don't know. Is there another way that we can move these toxic chemicals across the nation? Do we need, I don't know. I mean, obviously I know we use them in things, but that's probably another, we don't want those PFAs in every part of our body.
I think what it comes down to is, we can We can move them safely on trains potentially, but you need to factor in that there will be train derailments at this point. So you need to both lower the train derailments. You need to classify things as what they are with safe container
so the cleanup
units
can
for
be
the
safe,
chemicals.
right?
You need to have a procedure to come in where it's not arbitrary and the train company isn't deciding how to clean up themselves and hiding evidence
and not investing in the infrastructure that they use. I mean, that's the problem, is that we've allowed them to do these stock buybacks. We have subsidized them with absolutely no regulations to force them to, instead of investing that money back in themselves and their stakeholders, into their employees, into the infrastructure that they use. We're just letting them get away really with social murder. I mean, that's what it is, right? Like, they are destroying communities.
And you have examples of this across all industries. It's basically capitalism is the problem. I mean, you got workplace injuries. You know, you think we got technology, you got monitoring systems, you got everything. Workplace injuries should be way down in society. But since Amazon is taking over, Amazon employs 36% of the U.S. warehouse workers. I did not know it was near that high. That's 36% of people in warehouses work for fucking Amazon. That's how much they've taken over this goddamn country. But even by that metric, half of the serious injuries fall to that 36%.
Right.
So that tells you, you know, these evil bastards
that we give $10 billion contracts to
subsidize.
Yeah. We give them tax incentives to come into communities, and then they're allowed to do it. I mean, it's not even double dipping. They dip in so many times. They get the tax incentives. Then many of their employees are also on food assistance and like government subsidies. So they are pulling from the Amazon, the CEOs are pulling from that same pot many times, right? They get the subsidies, and then they allow their workers to have to get more money from the government because they're not willing to pay them real prices because they're the only game in town. I mean, we now have basically, you know, Amazon owns some of the small towns they're in, and there's nothing you can really do about it because the government's complicit in begging them to come to their towns.
100%. And just all the metrics you could look at a country for, we're doing terrible. Just to wrap up this, I mean, drug overdoses off the charts in the last 20 years. Environmentalism is dead. I mean, you know, Utah is the 19th state to censor and outlaw peaceful protests to stifle democratic debate and differences over pipelines. So the government is setting up our police structure to defend these corporations that are poisoning the environment. We can't, you know, protesting is now going to get you arrested. We see that happening with Cop City, and all the things, all the moves by the legislature recently are to squash protests.
Which is why, you know, I feel like, I mean, I know everybody watching our show gets it, but when Biden gives more money to cops than even Trump did, and then you have Democrats talking about the fascists on the right who are enacting these laws that Democrats barely fight against, but they always run on saying that they will. But then Democrats give hundreds of millions of dollars more to the cops who are going to arrest and kill protesters, communities of color, right? Like, so they are working in concert for the people they pretend to despise.
Yeah, and the only real differentiation between the two is the wacky stuff on the right, the culture stuff. I mean, there are real differences in those issues on, sorry, I just got a notification about the show coming up. There are real issues, obviously, on trans rights, gay rights. What else we got? I was going to say the border. It's not the border anymore. That's
Roe v. Wade.
Exactly the same.
No, I mean,
okay, Roe v. Wade is a real one. But those issues only exist to separate the parties out. And all the issues on the left that people thought, well, we're the good guys, not the bad guys. Other than those issues, we're not the good guys. We're the bad guys also.
The Democrats only pay lip service to it, right? Like, I mean, I know we're going to get into it, but like whether it's the abortion pill that's now, you know, one federal judge said that it's illegal to have. Biden says, no, we're not going to fight them on that. We'll take it to the courts. fight them on it. Why not fight them on it? Because he doesn't care. The cops killing, protesters, Democrats do nothing. The environment, which was supposed to be something that people on the titular left actually cared about, and Biden just keeps giving more contracts to decimate our, to the Arctic and to drill in offshore. So, I mean, they say those words, but like they actually aren't fighting for any of those. And I like part of me, yeah.
Well, if they fought for those issues, it would be used against them by the right as a rallying cry. So they're weighed the balance of these things. They're like, oh, we're going to keep winning re-election by just saying those guys are wacky over there that want this stuff, or, oh, they got abortion overturned. So now you got to vote for us.
But they keep enabling those people on the right to do exactly that. It's the whole, I know we talk about it all the time, but it's the whole kayfabe, the whole Washington Generals versus the Globetrotters. Like, yeah, they know exactly what's happening, because if you were actually concerned about the far right taking over, which I am, then you don't give more money to the police. We're going to uphold those exact policies that are decimating marginalized communities.
Yeah, well, their calculation is it will at least keep up the appearance that they're on the left. If the right is so wacky, they can neutralize all the economic issues and take them off the table. Like, we're not any different on that stuff, but we're not the wacky right on the abortion stuff. We're not the wacky right on these things. So that's all they care about, is having a few things on the right that are crazy. So you ignore everything in the middle where they're exactly the same.
Exactly the same. And they just pretend to be against the things on the far right.
I mean, abortion, the climate, the protesting, Newsom's passing. I mean, the mass in California, the ending the emergency. I mean, we'll get into COVID stuff in a second, probably. But
I mean, look how Obama dealt with Occupy Wall Street, right? Or the Dakota Access Pipeline. I mean, the truth is, it all sounds so trite, but like they are all working for the same team, which is the donor class that pays their bills and pads their pockets and brings them on yachts. Okay. What do you think? Do we have anything else to share for this?
We have one positive. So one thing that's happening in the U.S.
Really?
That's positive.
Show me.
Which is,
I want to see it.
It's literally all we got.
I'm going to pour myself another drink while you're talking.
I mean, unions and the working class actually fighing back on this stuff is the one thing that's changed in the U.S. When you look at the U.S. as number one, we're on a path to actually have some workers' movements here. I mean, we're not number one in it, but people are waking up, and that's positive change in the U.S. And for the first time ever at Rutgers history, all three departments, faculty, grad, and EOF, and postdoc unions have voted to go on strike. So kudos.
Yeah. Kudos to them, and so grateful, because that's the kind of thing, that's the only thing that's ever going to break us out of this if we have any hope at all.
Amen.
Amen. Is that pretty much it? We got police robots, healthcare in shambles. We know it, right? Move on.
Yeah, let's have a shot or something.
Yeah, baby.
Well, we got to hit it every week, because 10,000 people are still dying every month. I actually ran into the father of one of my kids' friends, and I had gone inside. My birthday was Sunday.
Oh, my God. I forgot to wish you happy birthday.
Put it out there. Forgot. I had actually forgotten. It's already a blip. But we went out to eat by the beach and sat outside, of course. And I had to use the restroom, put my mask on to go inside. And on my way out, I ran into a parent, a friend, an old friend. And he looked at me, he was like, "You're still doing the mask thing? Like, I'm crazy." It's like, did you know they're talking about this as if it's on the spectrum of airborne AIDS. And he looked at me like I was crazy. And 10,000 people are still dying every month. I mean, that's before you even talk about long COVID. And there's just no discussion about it. Nobody cares, except the people who actually do care are the people in power, because they still make people test before they come in to see them, as we will find out. I'll let you push the
Yeah.
button.
Well, literally the only people that know that they care about COVID are the ones wearing masks who are paying attention to it. Like the people not pay. I've never met someone paying attention to COVID who is not scared of, scared is not the right word. Cautious. I mean, taking precautions. Nobody who knows what's going on is not taking precautions, including everyone in power who has money. They really are
100%. I don't know if we talked about this last week, but I saw a tweet and it was somebody who is friends with people in like the, what's it called up there in Silicon Valley, like the wealthy tech bro people. And she said, the guy said to me, of course I mask everywhere I go and I isolate and I work from home. I'm just waiting for the great culling and then I'm going to take over. You know what I mean? Because they know what's happening. It's just like all the billionaires who have bunkers as they destroy the world with fossil fuels. They know exactly what they are doing and they think that they're going to be the last ones standing.
And they can afford every precaution possible. So even if you are seeing them putting a public face on not masking, they're all doing the nose stuff. They're all taking everything. And if they did get sick, they would be the first, they would immediately get a treatment of Paxlovid or something else that you would have to fight for to get.
Right.
Despite all the claims that it's readily available to the public, most people have to fight to get that stuff.
Absolutely. And, you know, I see somebody just wrote, how do you even track it anymore? And you're absolutely right. They've ended all of the tracking. So for a while they were doing wastewater still. I don't know how much they're still tracking that. But yeah, there is really no holistic way of looking at our whole country and being able to look at the numbers of COVID and I think that's also part of the reason that they started sending us finally the at-home test, because people don't report it when they do it at home. Right.
Yep, absolutely. And the emergency is over now officially. I mean, they just signed it. Biden signed it
a month early, right?
Yeah, it was supposed to be, I think, May 11th.
May 11th. And instead it was April 11th, because what difference does it make? How many people could that really save or prevent from getting sick? But among the serious implications, which again, no one is talking about, 15 million people getting kicked off Medicaid, 31 million pushed off a hunger cliff with SNAP cuts. We know that there's a way for this country to take care of its people, because when they wanted to, when it was scary for people, when the corporate media called out Trump, right away, there were a few plans that were put into effect, right? We all got some checks. We were told to stay home. There were OSHA protections. There were, larger benefits. And then they all disappeared one by one as soon as Biden came into office with no pushback.
And they really are, it's a new low. Like it's beyond a low that would have been tolerated under Trump. Getting rid of masks in healthcare settings.
Yeah.
California, the most allegedly liberal progressive state in the union, has gotten rid of the COVID mask mandates.
California and New York. And, one of the reasons that they ended the public health emergency and allowed the hospitals to get rid of masks, which I really don't understand actually why anybody in healthcare would allow that to happen, even just selfishly, like why they would want to chance getting sick. But the indemnity has been taken away, because if you don't have a public health emergency and somebody gets sick at your hospital from something that's no longer considered part of a state of emergency, you can't sue the hospital for getting sick there from something that is deemed no longer part of a public health emergency. I mean, they're just like wrapping up they're tying up all the loose ends and making sure that the, hospital administrators and CEOs of companies. Yeah.
They're actively pushing these messages like this. Smile. It's been a while since we've seen your smile. This is Phoenix Children's Hospital right here. Masks
these
are no
are the
longer
most
required.
Vulnerable kids.
So that's Phoenix Children's Health. This is, where was this one?
Stanford Child.
unmasking our smiles. They're having an event. They're having a big old, hey, let's all party that we're not masking in a
Let
fucking
it rip.
hospital with kids.
Yeah.
That's the Biden administration.
I mean, it is a crime against humanity, and I don't see the end in sight right now. I don't see where they think this is going to happen. Although, just so you know, when it's for Biden, you have got to be tested 24 hours before you can meet with the president. Strict rules for politicians. They know it's not over. They don't want to get sick. They just want us all to get back to work.
So we're seeing a lot of this anti-mask nonsense lately. Oh, a mask causes headaches, itching, lower oxygen intake. Okay, first off, I mean, maybe, but how about what COVID causes?
Yeah, exactly. Compare that to the repercussions of COVID.
I mean, I wear a mask every day, do physical stuff at work all day, go to the gym, wear a mask at the gym. I can breathe just fucking fine. It's not the end of the world. But so there's this new alleged study. They came up with a whole acronym for it: mask-induced exhaustion syndrome.
That's what they're saying is long COVID.
Yeah.
Meanwhile, people who have long COVID, many of them got it before people were even masking. They got it because they got COVID at the very beginning when Fauci told us we didn't need masks.
Yeah, and some of these people have been basically stuck in their house for an entire year. They don't have a mask problem because they're probably not wearing a mask in their house the entire year. But let's look at who Jeffrey Tucker is. Oh, he works for the Brownstone Institute.
Of course he does.
And what's the Brownstone Institute? The Brownstone Institute is basically the true believers of the Barrington Declaration. A lot of the
Koch funded
wrote it.
Yeah.
Yeah, the Koch brothers funded
Barrington and other evil right-wing people too, but yeah.
That leftists allegedly point to as some sort of valid viewpoint when it's just like climate denialism. It's the same bullshit, just rephrased under it's get to work. That's all it is. Get to work. So these Brownstone Institute wants people to get to work. They want to put out bullshit, bogus health stuff. And the fake left folks like Dorr are just believing it like fucking crazy.
It's appalling to see how they are pushing these fake studies. And by the way, so the masks don't work. They love to say masks don't work, but they work so well that they're going to bring on the long COVID. Which is it? Do they work or are they? I mean, what are they doing? But nobody is calling them out on this contradiction at all, because I think, unfortunately, a lot of people on the left have just decided they're done with it. And I don't really understand why. I think it's like it started, the genesis was because of their skepticism about big pharma, which I share that skepticism. But masks are the most simple, effective, you can use them against any variant, right? So if you're anti-vax, specifically COVID vax,
that could be more holistic than just wearing a mask.
like avoid it all. Out,
the aerosol. Now masks are causing the long COVID. Make it make sense. It just literally fucking doesn't.
All right, what do you think? Should we move on? Or do you have more?
Nah.
I
just want to punch people when I talk about COVID right now.
I know. It's very upsetting.
Yeah, baby.
Okay, I'm going to temporarily override this and put on a timeline cleanse so I can get into bed.
Oh, okay. All right.
All right. What do you think?
All right, go do it.
I got to scroll. I got to do some scrolling. Give me a second.
All right. I had a really good video to show everybody, but it wasn't exactly a timeline cleanse.
Hit it. What do you got?
I mean, it was the beginning of our whole Bohemian Rhapsody. Did you see it? This glorious video of
hit it. What a fucking creeper. Yeah.
And suck my tongue.
What the fuck?
What in the hell? Now he's issued an apology, but what
Yeah.
on earth made him think that he could have an 11-year-old boy suck his tongue in public? And babe, I think you just, and you know, this whole section for us was basically going to be about how the wealthy and the elite are so out of touch that even in public, they think they can do things that would land the rest of us in jail.
No consequence.
No consequences. The revelation. Oh, look, here was another one. This was a small blip, but also just like, why are you doing this in public? This is Liz Hurley on Easter. Thanking God today that my nephew, Miles, is with us for Easter today. His wound is still oozing blood, but he's alive and we're thankful. I don't even know what any of that means, but that is a very strange pose with your very handsome nephew. Like,
what are they doing?
Is that? I don't
It's
know,
like
but
old,
in public.
like Greek times where they just
Yeah.
all.
I mean, it's the whole, Epstein's Island idea. And also this thing, that Clarence Thomas, it's just been revealed. I mean, obviously we've all known that he's so corrupt, but that he has been taking gifts from his billionaire friend, Harlan Crow, and not disclosing any of these enormous gifts, going on yachts and to private islands. But one of the things is going to that Bohemian Grove that's been around now for a century, which is an all-male private, it's like estate, huge acre estate, where that has different like kind of colonies that you can belong to. You have to be incredibly wealthy, only male. It's about 80 miles north of San Francisco. What do you think goes on there?
I think it's like the male drum circles. It's like the hippie stuff. No, it's
kumbaya.
It's male power. It's prostitutes. It's all that stuff. It's secret stock tips where they all go in a room and invest in something, plan to take over something, plan to do some evil shit. When people talk about like Q stuff, it's crazy conspiracy stuff. This is where it would happen. These are the groups of people that are going to like get together and do some evil stuff that hurts workers somehow.
Yeah, absolutely. It's disgusting. And yes, the Hitler bro, right? So here's where it was just fascinating to see how quickly, I need to find all of our graphics, how quickly the pro Clarence Thomas propaganda came in, right? So first of all, Wall Street Journal decides that this is a smearing of Clarence Thomas. I mean, we already know how despicable this man is, but they're coming in and saying the left gins up another phony ethics assault to tarnish the Supreme Court.
Yeah. Meanwhile, I mean, how many things did we hear about Trump? Because he would read about Hitler. He was very curious about how Hitler came to power, and all that was used against Trump. I mean, it should be. It's like,
why do you have Mein Kampf signed in your,
understanding history is one thing, but like kind of looking up to Hitler is another, and Trump kind of looked up to Hitler. But the point is they reported on it in a bad way, and the first response from the Wall Street Journal is, oh, he's getting smeared over this stuff.
Yeah, it's not so bad. Clarence Thomas's billionaire friend is no Nazi. He has a signed copy of Mein Kampf, but that doesn't mean he admires Hitler.
These articles are just, everything is the fucking Onion these days, like it's straight out of their mouths. They're
so
just
gross.
Wanting how little power we have.
Yeah. And then this is hilarious. So Elie Mystal, who writes for Nation, writes, there's a serious discussion happening in the year 2023 about whether being friends with a Nazi sympathizer is a good thing. Republicans literally can't even be bothered to pretend anymore about what they're about. And Jonah Goldberg, you have no clue what you're talking about, and I will always remember that you joined a mob like this. Harlan Crow is no Nazi sympathizer, and you should be ashamed of suggesting it. Disgusting, ignorant, and shameful. Guess who else likes to pal around with Harlan Crow?
The top dem in
the top dem. Yeah, there's Representative Hakeem Jeffries was a guest at Old Parkland, which is Harlan's office complex, a few weeks ago. Harlan gave him a very warm introduction, and Pete Aguilar and Whip Clark, who's Kate Clark, I don't even know, were there too. So basically, everybody in leadership should just be flushed out, and we got to start over again. I mean, really.
Flushed is a better response. Just flush them.
Yeah.
The hill, run and cover.
Yeah. Did you want me? I was sucking down my drink really fast. Yeah. So all these people defending him. And one of the things that they said is, listen, he's allowed to have friends. It's not a big deal if he's able to do this. But then what we see is, and that just because you receive these gifts doesn't mean that you're corrupt. It doesn't mean that you do the bidding for them. But then, of course, it turns out, and now, of course, I'm not going to be able to find it because I need to put my glasses on. But the wife of, is this where it is? Yeah. So here's Ilya Shapiro saying, unless Harlan Crow has some business before the court, the ProPublica report about Justice Thomas is a big, breathless nothing burger. Thanks, Hillary, for that great phrase. And Andrew Perez, friend of the show and journalist with The Lever, Harlan Crow's wife, Kathy, serves on the board of the Manhattan Institute, which employs Ilya Shapiro to file amicus briefs lobbying the Supreme Court to rule certain ways on cases. So once again, you see that all of these people are connected. And if you get to be the journalist who tries to exculpate, like somehow run cover for these horrific, corrupt Supreme Court members or members of Congress, they're all hanging out at the Bohemian Grove. I mean, that's just,
it's a big club, and we are not in it. And they have all the money, they have all the media, they have all the power. What we have is union strikes and burning shit down and creating a ruckus. And the ruckus is not coming from Congress or the squad or Bernie, who hasn't said shit about the pandemic.
Yeah, that's pretty disappointing. All right. So that's our boho. Oh, and then there was that one, but I'm sure everybody's seen it, but the Howard Schultz bristling at being called a billionaire, like that's a smear on its own. Yeah. Should we just spin it?
Well, we have our heart out, so I'm a little worried about that, but let's show a timeline cleanse because I need this in my life.
Okay.
Excuse me, I really like your suit. What do you do for a living?
I work at a defense company. Can I tour my home? Sure, why not?
So what exactly do you do?
I'm on the board of directors at Lockheed Martin. I run a oil and gas business.
Yeah, that's TikTok. My old eyes have a hard time seeing it on this small screen. I hope you guys can all see it better, but he's a great follow. It's amazing to see this sort of anti-imperialist niche on TikTok just exploding. And I know we're probably not going to get to the state of the Democrats right now, but hilarious that at the same time our government is trying to ban TikTok, Biden is enlisting TikTok influencers to be part of his mission to be reelected. And they'll even have their own briefing room at the White House.
Yeah, it's like, which is it? Okay, it's an evil controlled by China, but we're going to get in on it big time.
Because we need those kids. And we're not going to get them with our policies. So we got to pay them to create videos to propagandize people about how great the Democrats are doing.
Yeah.
It's kind of crazy.
So
Yeah.
I think we're out of time. So I'm just going to say it's foretell.
Is it?
We're
it's
not going
foretell.
to be
Yeah.
So
every clock in my house says something different.
We landed on shot.
That's a great way to go out. Of course it is, Pat. That's why you get paid the big bucks.
Okay, the zero.
One last shot before we head over to generational change, where I will be drinking wine. But we do have a lot to talk about. There'll be a lot more next week, I am sure, and we won't have a heart out. So yes, thank you for reminding me. Smash that like button, please. Thank you. Cheers, everybody. We'll see you next week. Keep punching up.
Appreciate everyone still fighting out there.
Really do. Cheers.